right. Welcome to the Ambient meeting for this week. Let me start sharing my screen. I guess a couple of heads up. A couple of us from Solo will be at offsite next week, so we'll have to think out if there's other people who can run the meeting or host meeting, or I'll defer to you guys. But a couple of us from Solo probably will not be able to join. All right, we only have two things on the agenda. The first thing I was hoping Keith could weigh in, which is the one I asked him. So actually, let's triage this first, because that's just one of the items on the list. So let's go to this must item list. So it looks like pretty much what we have is docs and Ambient cross version compatibility. Steven, I think you are assigned for this. Actually, Mitch is assigned. I don't know if Mitch, do you have any updates you want to, or any concerns for this before we GA?
Yeah, I'm working on that today, getting the tests running and checked in.
That's awesome. So, but so far you don't see any blocking issue for now.
No, not at all.
That is awesome. Thank you. So let's go to Doc for ambient improvements. Stephen, I think you're working on the performance and the scalability, right?
Yeah, I'm just waiting for a release candidate to actually run it on.
Perfect. Is the number all reasonable now? Because I think you sold out something a week ago.
Yeah, I figured it out. There were various. I figured it out.
Okay, awesome. Great work. That is awesome. So maybe we could run. So we have alpha builds now. John mentioned. I don't know how automated your tests are actually. Do you think maybe we could run with early builds, or at least release candidates?
Yeah, I can do that today.
Yeah, just to clarify, technically an alpha build we don't have. We have a dev build, which is built in every commit. An alpha build is a full standard release that we trigger and name alpha that we do before the branch cut. The reason it's nice to do it, aside from giving people a specific point, which tends to make people try it out more, is that it makes the Go tagging a bit nicer. And it gives the release managers, if they haven't had an opportunity to do a release, just some experience. So it shouldn't really impact anyone much, but I don't remember. I think there's some release managers on this call. So that's probably something we should gear up to do in the next week or two before the branch cut. It's not so bad if you don't do it, but if you don't, then the master branch in the Go versioning scheme becomes something like the 1.23-SHA. So if you don't do it for a while, then you start having master be like the super old version, because Go's branching and our branching aren't the same. So anyhow.
Yeah, so
Wait, so what does that mean for me?
Oh, nothing. Just if you want to run it, run with the latest commit. And that's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, so who is the primary release manager for 124? I'd like to see if we can give him or her a heads up.
I think we've got Zonku primary, Mike secondary, and Daniel tertiary.
Okay, so maybe I'll ask Zonku, see if he could.
Yeah. In theory, given part of the goal is to get people familiar with how to do it, that would suggest maybe the tertiary person should actually lead it. Although I think Daniel's done release management before, so it's probably not a big deal there.
Yeah, Daniel have done it for multiple releases, so. All right. Okay, cool. And then I think we knock off security model, verify mutual TS. Okay, I'm working on the supported API doc. I think some of you indicate there is a need for that. I assume there's no progress for Mitch on this one finalized, or maybe this is already done, Mitch, and then we'll jump back to the API.
That one, I'm a little bit confused by.
Okay, I guess, yeah, let's go over what, I guess this is it. Upgrade with helm. And, oh, are we thinking more than that?
If we think that it's done and it's already done, like I wouldn't be confused that something that's already done made it to this list, because we took the old list with not necessarily everyone involved and said, yes, that's super important, and didn't necessarily know all the work that's been done. So it's very possible that's already been done.
But I think maybe it's done for revision, but not for in place. Is that what we have? I'm trying to take a closer look, but Mitch, you probably know the best.
So when this was pushed in, we had said we were going to add an in-place dock that would be like in the same place with sort of a tab select, whether you wanted to do in-place or revision-based.
Mhm.
But I don't know if that's necessarily a blocker for GA.
Okay, so right now the docs is revision based, right? So we could
Yeah.
potentially add in place, and you think it's nice to have, but not necessarily a blocker, because they do have a one way to upgrade.
Yeah, I mean, well, I'll say just for my part, in-place upgrades aren't a particularly important workflow from my perspective. I think others may have a stronger affinity for that. And so if someone else wants to drive that, that's fine. That's not likely to be something I'm going to be able to drive in the next couple of weeks.
Okay, that sounds good. So maybe I'll change this to be finalized for revision. That's already done, right? Revision is the upgrade, and then in place upgrade. That's TBD, because it would be nice to have an owner, but right now we're not sure if
Sounds good.
if somebody willing to sign it up.
By the way, while we're on this topic, can someone refresh my memory? What's our timeline towards the release here?
It's early November, I believe, because KubeCon is middle November, November 12th or something like that, right? So we're looking at, if you look at our wiki page, I think it has the dates. So we're looking at cutting a week or two, maybe a week before KubeCon.
Okay. Branch cut is October 21st. Great.
Okay, yeah, well, you're faster than me. Perfect.
No, John posted it in the chat. I'm not fast. John is.
Awesome. Yep. So I'll put that in the meeting minutes. Okay.
Yeah, so on that note, so the 21st is, we have to rest this week and then next week, and then 21st is Monday. So there's about 8 work days left, maybe. I think we know the things on the GA must-have list we've been tracking very closely, and also those are all testing and documentation anyway. So if we're a little late, it's not the end of the world. But if there's other things people are interested in, it would be good to bring it up so we make sure that we get that in, especially because I don't know if it was done this call, we mentioned it, but Solo has an offsite next week. So a lot of us, which are people that tend to review PRs sometimes, will be out. So I, at least personally, I'm sure I'll review PRs, but I won't necessarily notice if it's just in my email. So basically the point is, if you have PRs that are blocked, be noisy about it. Otherwise, they're not going to make the branch cut properly. Not just because I won't review it. I don't want to make it seem like I'm the one bottleneck. Just, PRs tend to, I don't want anything left behind is all. So.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you for the reminder. Okay, so I will I put this separate. I think with that, Stephen, I think you're in good shape with the performance. I'd like to give a quick update on the supported API doc, which is my next thing on the agenda. I just want to, get people's feedback. I've already gotten a lot of feedback from many of you. So initially I started this with annotation and labels, and many of you provided feedback the labels are not needed. So I kind of goes down to annotation. We have to decide whether it's worth even to mention annotation, because John has a dedicated PR 3307 that lists there is like a label and annotation pages in Istio that list everything. I thought it would be useful because these are the specific one related to ambient, and it's not something people can easily search for because they have to know what to search. And then the other thing we have on the status is Kubernetes Gateway API resource, which HTTP route right now is categorized as GA, and the other two are alpha because in Kubernetes Gateway API, I think they are experimental right now. Last not the least, there is also a categorized of Istio's API resources. Right now, I have, I think the only thing odd right now is I had virtual services as alpha, which could be reading pretty odd because I think Whitney, through your work, we kind of promoted virtual service or the classical API to GA also. But this is a statement for ambient, so might be okay. And I think all the service entry destination rule, I'm marking them as GA. Request authentication, I'm not sure if it's been very well tested in ambient. So I had them as beta. Yeah, so if you have any questions, do let me know. Or if there's any major concerns, now is a good time to say it.
So I'm looking at destination rule. I think there's a good number, well, maybe I'm wrong, but I think there's a good number of things within destination rule that Ambient does not support. Is that correct?
Not really. In the waypoint now, that is true in the past version. I forget 1.23 or 1.22. But now it does. So
Okay,
Yeah.
so like tunnel settings.
yes. Like there's maybe some weird interactions on some of the upstream transport stuff like the tunnel and TLS. I forget the exact issue. I think it all works, and I have some tests for the things that I made to work, but I forget the exact state. The one thing that's a bit wonky is you can't do Istio MTLS because now we replace it with HPhone and it automatically applies. But other than that, everything should work. I wouldn't say that I would bet my life that it's all working, but it's all intended to work at the very least. So, and has some test.
Yeah, I was debating on destination rule too, but Keith felt very strongly it should also be GA. So I'm like, might as well, you know.
I wonder, is there a, early on we had talked about, you know, some of these fields require waypoint, some of them don't. Do we have a clear mechanism for users to understand when they've used a waypoint field, but there is no waypoint? Maybe an analyzer or status field.
I think Ian, through your status work, I'm pretty sure I saw some message on OSCE policy status where you warn people, hey, the waypoint doesn't exist or something like that.
Yeah, so we can detect that sort of thing, and you'll get a warning like, oh, you bound to a service successfully, but that service doesn't have a waypoint, or you tried to bind to a gateway that's not a waypoint, or those type of things should be covered.
So for OSCE policy, we definitely have that. I guess the question is, do we have any similar capability on the other resources? I think some of them don't have a status field currently. Is that correct?
Yeah. Well, I'm not sure the state on all of them. I only implemented OSCE policy though.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
John,
by the way, that OSCE policy work was awesome, Ian. It was really good.
Oh, appreciate it. John, you did service entry, yeah?
Yeah, we've got two things. I think we've got the OSCE and we've got service and service entry about if you say that this service entry should be bound to the waypoint, whether it was bound or whether it failed for some reason. So we'll continue, obviously, to expand on what we report.
And these two are the hardest, service entry and OC policy, right?
Yeah. One of the hardest things actually is probably to get users to know to look there, right? Who looks at service status when they have a debugging issue? Probably no one familiar with Istio because we never wrote it there before. Probably actually users not familiar with Istio maybe, but
Yeah, it's certainly the gateway API pattern. So if they're used to that, they might think to check.
Yeah, agreed. And the other thing I want to discuss is John, the data plane mode label. I know you marked it as a beta, but I almost feel that's been there for 2 years and we haven't seen a need to change it. So I'm kind of intent to mark that as GA.
I marked everything as beta to snapshot the current state at the time.
Okay.
So there's nothing related to Ambient, which is GA. On the Ambient GA doc, we had discussed, because I didn't want anything controversial. I just wanted to get the constants from the repo to the API repo. On the Ambient doc, we had discussed, I think, which labels would be GA, and it was basically what you said, I believe. So I 100% agree. They should be GA. Someone, you or I, should send a PR to the API repo so we can bike shed exactly which ones. But the ones you have here, I think, are reasonable answers.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah, the only thing I put this as beta because this is newer than the other one. The other one has been around for much longer. All right. Any other concern anyone wants to raise? We can certainly, continue iterate on this because it's dark. There is no urgency, but I kind of want to get some consensus and raise awareness for the stock so that people can weigh in.
I think my only thought on the status thing, it's wonderful that we have it in a few places. It sounds like we don't have it for destination rule, and that's probably okay. But I do wonder if there's a place we can document which fields within destination rule require waypoints and which ones do not.
I think everything requires waypoint, if I understood correctly, in destination rule.
Yes, the only APIs that zTunnel reads is authorization policy and pure authentication.
Okay, that is helpful.
Yeah, which maybe we should write that down, but it's very easy to know which ones.
Yeah.
I mean, it's very easy to explain which ones require waypoint because it's.
Okay, I can take a to double check. I thought we already have some doc on that, but I could be wrong, so I'll double check. I think it's in the user guide when we tell people whether you need to deploy a waypoint. Yeah, I'll double check on that.
This is exciting.
Yeah. All right, this is great. Thank you so much, everyone, for the feedback. And anything else we should be discussing today? All right, I don't see any other topics, so I would like to give you guys some time back. Thank you so much for joining, everyone. Take care. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Hey, y'all.